At Eagle Ridge Military Base, dawn broke cold and gray, casting long shadows across the barracks and sprawling training grounds. The sharp blast of the reveille horn sliced through the morning mist, signaling the start of another grueling day. New recruits hurried into formation, uniforms stiff, and eyes still heavy with sleep, but none more so than Emma Carter. Her steps were measured, deliberate, as she approached the assembly area, the weight of anticipation pressing down on her slight frame. Sergeant Daniels stood at the head of the formation, his presence commanding and unyielding. The veteran drill instructor's hawk-like eyes scanned the rows of recruits with a mixture of impatience and scrutiny. Beside him, Corporal Lee jotted notes on a clipboard, occasionally glancing Emma's way with a flicker of interest that went unnoticed amid the morning's chaos. Emma's uniform was impeccably neat, but her slender build seemed almost out of place among the bulkier, broader-shouldered recruits around her. Whispers rippled through the ranks like a faint breeze, barely audible but charged with skepticism. Corporal Mitchell, a burly recruit with a voice like gravel, leaned toward his comrade and muttered loud enough for others to hear, "Bet she won't last past week 1. Too small for this grind." Laughter bubbled quietly, low and dismissive, as other recruits echoed the sentiment. Emma's gaze remained fixed ahead, jaw clenched, masking the sting beneath her calm exterior. Sergeant Daniels's voice cut through the murmurs, sharp and authoritative. "Listen up. This is Eagle Ridge, where we separate the strong from the weak. You're here because you want to serve, but the question is, can you?" Emma shifted her weight, adjusting the strap of her pack with a practiced hand. The morning air was crisp, tinged with the scent of damp earth and pine, but inside her, a fire burned quietly, fueled by more than just determination. No one knew the truth of her past, the hidden strength beneath that unassuming uniform, or the secret she carried like a shadow just out of sight. The recruits were ordered into squads for the initial drill session, push-ups, sprints, obstacle navigation, all designed to test endurance and spirit. As they lined up at the starting point, Corporal Lee's eyes lingered on Emma's steady posture. Unlike the others, who cracked under pressure or faltered in their movements, Emma's breathing remained controlled, her stance balanced and ready. Sergeant Daniels barked the start command, and the squad surged forward, bodies straining against fatigue and aching muscles. Emma moved with an unexpected grace, her feet landing lightly yet firmly, her limbs fluid through the obstacle courses demanding climbs and low crawls. Whispers turned into puzzled glances as she maintained pace, even pulling ahead in moments that challenged the others' stamina. "Hey, Carter, you hiding a secret gym membership?" Corporal Mitchell sneered as they paused at a rest point, sweat beading down his forehead. The comment drew a few snickers but no reply. Emma kept her focus, wiping damp strands of hair from her face, the faintest smile tugging at the corner of her mouth, betraying nothing. Sergeant Daniels called the recruits back into formation, his gaze sharp and appraising. "Not bad, Carter. You've got more fight than I expected." The statement hung in the air, ambiguous but charged with grudging respect. Emma's eyes flickered toward him briefly, acknowledging the words without breaking her composure. As the morning drills progressed, the atmosphere thickened with a mixture of rivalry and curiosity. Some recruits openly doubted Emma's ability to endure the coming weeks, while others began to wonder if their initial judgments were premature. Corporal Lee, in particular, seemed increasingly attentive, his notebook filling with observations that went beyond mere performance metrics. Between exercises, chatter buzzed about her background. "She's too quiet," one recruit whispered. "Keeps to herself like she's hiding something." Another speculated, maybe she's a legacy or something, gotten through connections. None dared ask outright, but the speculation shaped the undercurrent of tension threading through the group. Emma's own thoughts remained guarded, memories flickering beneath her calm exterior. The past was a locked room, sealed tight against the world's prying eyes. Her presence at Eagle Ridge was no accident, no casual decision born from youthful ambition alone. There was a purpose, a reason buried beneath layers of protocol and secrecy, waiting for the right moment to surface. As the sun climbed higher, the recruits gathered for a brief respite before weapons training. The tension in the air was palpable, a mix of fatigue and anticipation. Emma removed her jacket carefully, revealing lean muscles that hinted at more than just casual fitness. The subtle definition beneath her sleeves caught the eye of Corporal Lee, who exchanged a glance with Sergeant Daniels, a silent communication filled with unspoken questions. "All right, maggots," Sergeant Daniels growled, "today you learn to respect your weapon. The M for carbine isn't just a tool, it's your lifeline. Master it, or it'll be the death of you." His voice was gravelly but firm, echoing across the range. Emma stepped forward during the demonstration portion, fingers deft and sure as she handled the rifle. The other recruits watched with widening eyes as she disassembled and reassembled the weapon with fluid precision, movements practiced and flawless. Murmurs rippled through the group, disbelief mingling with grudging respect. "That YouTube tutorial again," someone joked, trying to mask their surprise with humor, but Emma's expression remained unreadable. Corporal Lee's eyes narrowed thoughtfully, his curiosity deepening. There was something about Emma's skill set, too polished, too instinctive for a newcomer. He made a mental note to follow up, to uncover whatever lay behind the facade. The morning's final challenge approached, an endurance run across the rugged terrain surrounding the base. The recruits lined up once more, muscles burning and lungs gasping for air. Emma took her place near the front, heart steady, mind calm. The whistle blew. Feet pounded the earth, dust rising in their wake. Emma's strides stayed even, rhythmical, almost effortless compared to the ragged gasps and faltering steps of others. Whispers broke out, was she hiding elite training? A past none could have guessed. Sergeant Daniels scanned the pack, eyes locking on Emma as she crossed the finish line, chest heaving but unbowed. He shook his head in disbelief, the morning's doubts unraveling at last. As the recruits dispersed, the murmur of speculation grew louder. Emma stood alone for a moment, gaze fixed on the horizon, the weight of unseen burdens pressing against her ribs. Beneath her calm exterior, a quiet promise stirred, a secret waiting silently, ready to change everything. The afternoon sun beat down relentlessly on Eagle Ridge's training grounds, the heat rippling off the asphalt as the recruits prepared for the next phase of their grueling regimen. Emma Carter stood quietly near the edge of the group, her breathing steady despite the exhausting morning. Sergeant Daniels paced before them, his stern gaze sweeping the squad as he outlined the day's objectives. Today it's not just about brute force. It's about precision, coordination, and tactical awareness. You'll move as one unit, or you'll fail. The recruits exchanged glances, some eager, others visibly tense. Corporal Lee was already perched on a low wall nearby, clipboard in hand, eyes sharp and calculating as he watched Emma with a growing intensity. He had made it his unofficial mission to dissect every nuance of her performance, the subtle ways she shifted her weight, the timing of her breath, the way she scanned the environment before making a move. As the squad gathered for the first drill, a simulated urban assault course, Emma slipped effortlessly into formation. Her movements were crisp, fluid, and calculated, every step purposeful. As the team advanced through narrow corridors and low barricades, she instinctively took cover behind a rusted shipping container, signaling silently to her squad mates with a subtle tilt of her head. Sergeant Daniels barked orders, testing their reflexes and communication. "Suppressing fire. Cover me." The recruits responded, but Emma's execution was different. There was a tactical finesse in her gestures and timing, a practice choreography that suggested far more than basic training. Corporal Lee scribbled notes rapidly, his brow furrowed. "She moves like someone who's operated in hostile environments," he muttered under his breath. The other recruits noticed the difference too, stealing curious glances as Emma coordinated their advance with a quiet confidence that unsettled expectations. Midway through the drill, Emma took point, navigating an obstacle that required scaling a chain-link fence and quickly dispatching a simulated threat. Her body moved with a grace and speed that left even the most seasoned recruits struggling to keep pace. She didn't just complete the course, she dominated it, her every action betraying a deep reservoir of skill. "Where did you learn to move like that?" whispered Private Gomez, eyes wide with disbelief. "You weren't in any basic training I've heard of." Emma's lips twitched into a faint smile, but she said nothing. The question hung in the air, unspoken between her and the squad. After the drill, the recruits were led to the firing range for weapons qualification. The sun blazed overhead, turning the range into a shimmering expanse of heat and sound. Emma stepped forward with her M4 carbine, her fingers already familiar with the weapon's weight and mechanisms. She loaded the rifle with practiced ease, the metallic click sharp in the quiet tension of the range. Targets popped up at varying distances, and one by one the recruits took their shots. Some stumbled, their nerves betraying their aim. Emma, however, fired with an unerring precision that drew the attention of every instructor present. Each round found its mark cleanly, the groupings tight and consistent. Sergeant Daniels watched intently, his skepticism waning as Emma's proficiency became undeniable. Corporal Lee leaned closer, whispering to the recruit beside him, "There's more to her than meets the eye. This isn't just luck or raw talent, it's training, elite training." As the session progressed, Emma demonstrated advanced techniques, quick magazine changes, tactical reloads, and immediate action drills. Her hands moved almost mechanically, the fluidity of her motions suggesting hours upon hours of repetition. When she finished, the range erupted into murmurs of astonishment. "Where the hell did you learn to shoot like that?" Sergeant Daniels demanded, his tone a mix of curiosity and grudging respect. Emma shrugged lightly, deflecting the question with a casual remark. "YouTube tutorials," she said, voice even and unflinching. The room tensed, uncertain whether she was joking or hiding the truth. Corporal Lee exchanged a knowing glance with Daniels, his mind already racing to connect the dots. He knew that such skill couldn't be acquired overnight, nor through mere online videos. There was a history hidden beneath Emma's calm words, a past that refused to reveal itself easily. Later, as the recruits gathered for a brief water break, whispers spread like wildfire. "She's not who she says she is," muttered Private Harris, eyes narrowed in suspicion. "There's something off about her." Emma remained silent, her expression unreadable as she sipped from her canteen. The weight of their doubt pressed around her, but she bore it with quiet dignity. Beneath the surface, she was calculating, aware that every step forward was shadowed by questions she wasn't ready to answer. Corporal Lee lingered behind the group, pulling out a small device to access military records discreetly. His fingers flew over the screen, searching for any trace of Emma Carter beyond the official enlistment papers. What he uncovered sent a jolt through his system, a series of classified entries, mission reports, and a name linked to a covert special forces unit. The files were marked as missing in action, presumed dead during a classified operation overseas. His eyes widened as he pieced the fragments together. Emma wasn't just a recruit, she was a survivor of a secret war, her identity scrubbed from public records. He looked up just in time to see her rejoin the squad, moving with the same quiet confidence that had kept her under the radar for so long. The realization settled heavily on him. Whatever Emma's reasons for being here, they were far more complex than anyone had imagined. And the implications for Eagle Ridge were profound. As training resumed, Emma's tactical acumen only deepened. During a squad movement exercise, she instinctively took charge when a simulated ambush forced the group to adapt. Her commands were subtle but effective, directing teammates to cover and flank positions with an authority that silenced any lingering doubts. "Carter, where did you learn to lead like that?" Sergeant Daniels questioned after the drill, the edge in his voice replaced by a grudging admiration. Emma met his gaze steadily. "I've had some experience," she replied, her tone measured but resolute. The day wore on, and the recruits' perceptions of Emma began to shift. What had started as skepticism evolved into cautious respect. They saw glimpses of a hidden depth, a soldier shaped by trials they could scarcely imagine. Corporal Lee continued his quiet observation, his mind racing with questions. Who was Emma Carter, really? What secrets lay beneath the surface of this determined recruit? And how far would she go to keep them hidden? As the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long shadows over Eagle Ridge, the base buzzed with the quiet undercurrent of curiosity and suspicion. Emma stood apart, the weight of her past pressing against her like a silent storm. Yet, beneath it all, a quiet resolve burned brighter than ever, a promise that her story was only just beginning to unfold. The morning haze still clung to the edges of Eagle Ridge as the recruits assembled for the day's most demanding drill yet, an extended obstacle course designed to push endurance, agility, and mental focus to their limits. Sergeant Daniels stood before them, his expression unreadable beneath the brim of his patrol cap. "This is where you prove whether you're worth the uniform, or just another number in the dirt. Move fast, move smart, and don't quit." Emma Carter's heartbeat thrummed steadily, a calm rhythm beneath the rising tension. The murmurs of doubt that had shadowed her since arrival now gave way to a restless curiosity. The recruits lined up at the start, muscles coiled and eyes sharp. Corporal Lee lingered nearby, eyes never leaving Emma, clipboard forgotten for the moment as something deeper took hold, a sense that the day's events would unravel more than just physical limits. The whistle blew. Emma surged forward with a fluid grace that caught several recruits off guard. Her body moved with a precision that suggested years of honed training, not the raw endurance of a novice. Climbing walls, swinging across ropes, crawling under barbed wire, she navigated each obstacle with an almost effortless expertise that defied the whispered skepticism still lingering among some peers. Corporal Mitchell, the loudest critic just days before, struggled to keep pace, his breaths ragged and uneven. He stole a glance at Emma, who was already halfway through the course, her movements smooth and efficient. "How the hell is she doing that?" he muttered, voice tinged with disbelief. Emma's eyes remained fixed ahead, muscles taut but controlled. She was aware of the growing attention but didn't slow. There was a secret driving her, an unspoken truth that propelled her beyond mere physical limits. As she vaulted over the final barrier, Sergeant Daniels stepped forward to mark attendance, clipboard in hand. His eyes flicked to Emma's shoulder, catching a glimpse of fabric shifting beneath her sleeve. The sergeant's gaze sharpened, narrowing as the fabric slipped just enough to reveal a tattoo, an intricate insignia partially obscured but unmistakable to those who knew. The emblem bore the shape of a phoenix, its wings spread wide, encircling the words "Phoenix Squadron" in bold, precise lettering. The revelation sent a sudden hush over the training ground, the clatter of footsteps and distant commands fading into a tense silence. Sergeant Daniels's face tightened, a flicker of recognition and disbelief crossing his features. "Where did you get that?" His voice broke the silence, low but edged with a sharp intensity that silenced the murmurs immediately. Emma's breath hitched for the briefest moment, then steadied. She pushed her jacket sleeve down swiftly, concealing the tattoo once more. "It's just something from my past," she said evenly, voice steady but guarded. The recruits exchanged stunned looks, whispers reigniting with fresh energy. The Phoenix Squadron was a name spoken in hushed tones, an elite unit believed to have been decimated during a covert operation years ago. Its members were declared casualties, their fates sealed in classified reports that few dared to question. Sergeant Daniels's eyes darkened with a storm of memories, his jaw tightening. "Phoenix Squadron. Thought you were all gone," he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. Corporal Lee stepped forward, his earlier suspicions coalescing into something tangible. "Sergeant, that insignia. It's not just a tattoo. It means she was part of that unit." And if that's true, his voice trailed off, eyes locking with Emma's, silently demanding confirmation. Emma's gaze held firm, the weight of years pressing down upon her. "I survived," she said simply, words heavy with unspoken history. The training ground was still, the gravity of her revelation sinking into every recruit's bones. Doubt gave way to shock, and shock to a fragile respect mingled with disbelief. Emma's presence, once a curiosity, now carried the weight of legend and controversy. Sergeant Daniels's voice was low, a mix of accusation and awe. "You never told us who you really were." Emma's lips pressed into a thin line. "I had to keep it quiet. For my own safety. For the mission's secrecy." A tense pause hung between them before Sergeant Daniels's expression softened just enough to reveal a flicker of understanding. "You're not just a recruit, are you?" "No," Emma admitted. "I'm not." The ripple of realization spread through the squad. Private Harris, who had whispered doubts days before, now looked at Emma with wide eyes, the lines of skepticism replaced by something closer to admiration. Corporal Mitchell swallowed hard, voice rough. "So, you're a ghost. A soldier no one thought was alive." Emma's gaze shifted briefly to the ground, then back up, steady and resolute. I'm here to finish what we started. Sergeant Daniels nodded slowly, the weight of command settling back onto his shoulders. Then you'd better be ready. Because this base isn't just a training ground, it's a crucible. And if you're going to make it through, you'll need to prove that you're more than just a survivor. The recruits moved to their next stations, the air thick with tension and newfound respect. Emma's revelation had shifted the undercurrents of suspicion into something harder to define, a shared awareness that her presence was no accident, and that the story behind the Phoenix Squadron was far from over. Corporal Lee lingered after the others had dispersed, stepping quietly to Emma's side. You have to tell me everything, he said, voice low but insistent. About Phoenix Squadron. About what really happened. Emma regarded him for a long moment, weighing the risk. Not yet, she said finally. But soon. When the time is right. As the sun climbed higher, casting sharp light over Eagle Ridge, Emma adjusted her jacket, hiding the emblem once more. Beneath her calm exterior, a storm brewed, memories of betrayal, loss, and a mission left unfinished. The tattoo was more than ink, it was a symbol of survival, defiance, and a promise that the truth would come to light. The training grounds buzzed with activity, but for Emma Carter, the day had already marked a turning point. The mask of anonymity was slipping, and with every step forward, she edged closer to a reckoning that would shake the very foundations of Eagle Ridge. The evening shadows lengthened over Eagle Ridge Military Base, the fading sun casting an orange glow that mingled uneasily with the growing tension permeating the barracks. Inside the dimly lit common area, Corporal Lee sat hunched over a secured terminal, the pale screen illuminating his focused expression as he sifted through classified personnel files. The quiet hum of the base's network was the only sound, broken occasionally by the distant clang of boots on concrete. Emma Carter's name appeared repeatedly in encrypted reports, each entry more revealing than the last. Records marked missing in action, during a covert operation painted a grim picture, one that contrasted sharply with the vivacious recruit, who had so effortlessly outperformed her peers. Lee's fingers raced as he pieced together mission logs, after-action reports, and personnel rosters, uncovering a trail of silence and deliberate obfuscation. The files hinted at a cover-up, a deliberate erasure of Emma's unit from official history. The Phoenix Squadron, once lauded for its effectiveness, had been wiped from records following a failed operation cloaked in secrecy. Survivors were declared dead, their existence buried beneath layers of classified information and official lies. Lee leaned back, running a hand through his hair in disbelief. The implications were chilling. They wanted her gone, he muttered to himself. And not just gone, forgotten. Meanwhile, Emma moved through the base with practiced ease, her presence a paradox of quiet strength and guarded vulnerability. The whispers of her past trailed behind her like a shadow, but she remained focused on the present. Weapons training resumed under the harsh glare of floodlights, the metallic scent of gunpowder thick in the air. Sergeant Daniels barked orders as the recruits assembled for the next drill. Today, you'll show me who's got what it takes. Weapons proficiency isn't just about hitting targets, it's about instinct survival. Emma stepped forward, her hands steady as she prepared her M4 carbine. The weapon was an extension of herself, movements smooth and precise. As targets appeared, she fired shot after shot, each round finding its mark with unerring accuracy. The other recruits watched in stunned silence, their earlier doubts dissolving into awe. Corporal Lee observed from the sidelines, noting every subtle motion, the way Emma manipulated the rifle's components, her rapid reloads, the fluid disassembly and reassembly. It was clear her skills far surpassed that of any ordinary recruit. Where did you learn to handle a weapon like that? Sergeant Daniels demanded, voice edged with both suspicion and grudging respect. Emma's gaze met his, unwavering. Experience, she replied simply, her tone carrying the weight of unspoken battles. The session ended with murmurs spreading through the ranks. Rumors took root, whispers that higher command had deliberately scrubbed Emma's records, that her survival threatened to expose a scandal buried deep within the military's hierarchy. Some recruits looked at her with newfound respect, others eyed her warily, unsure what allegiance to offer. Later, during a break, Emma found herself alone near the training yard's perimeter. Corporal Lee approached cautiously, his demeanor a blend of concern and determination. "Emma," he began, voice low, "I've been digging through your records. What happened to your unit? It wasn't just a mission gone wrong, was it?" Emma's eyes flickered with a mix of pain and resolve. "No," she said quietly. "It was a betrayal. We were set up." Lee's breath caught. "But why? Who would do that?" She hesitated, the weight of the truth pressing down on her like a physical force. "People who wanted us erased, wiped off the map because we knew too much. We were a liability." The words hung in the cooling air, heavy and dangerous. As the night deepened, tension mounted across Eagle Ridge. Emma's exceptional skills and the revelations about her past had shifted the base's fragile equilibrium. Some officers exchanged furtive glances, their faces tight with anxiety. Rumors of conspiracy and cover-up buzzed beneath the surface, threatening to erupt. Back in the barracks, Emma prepared her gear, every movement deliberate. She was aware that eyes watched her, that her presence was no longer just a curiosity, but a threat to those who had tried to bury the truth. Yet she remained undeterred. The next morning brought hand-to-hand combat training, a brutal test of strength and strategy designed to unearth weaknesses. Emma was paired with Corporal Mitchell, the same recruit who had mocked her determination days before. His bulk and aggression were intimidating, but Emma's stance was calm and poised, betraying a deep well of expertise. The sparring began, and Mitchell charged with reckless force, swinging heavy blows that many would have struggled to deflect. Emma moved with calculated precision, blocking, redirecting, countering with swift, controlled strikes. Her defense was impeccable, her counters effective without excessive force. Within moments, she executed a flawless hip throw, sending Mitchell crashing to the mat. As he fell, the sleeve of her uniform tore, revealing the phoenix tattoo once again, bold and unmistakable. Gasps echoed through the training hall. Sergeant Daniels stepped forward, eyes fixed on the emblem. "That symbol, it means something. You're not just a recruit, Carter." Emma met his gaze steadily. "I'm a survivor," she said quietly. "And I'm here to finish what was started." The room buzzed with a mixture of shock and curiosity. The tattoo was more than a mark, it was a statement, a link to a past wrapped in secrecy and sacrifice. Later, in a secluded corner of the base, Emma and Corporal Lee convened with a small group of trusted recruits. The mood was tense but resolute. "We can't let them keep burying the truth," Emma said, voice firm. "We have to expose what happened, to clear our names and honor those who didn't make it." Lee nodded. "They erased your unit for a reason. If we don't act carefully, we could all be targets." Plans began to form, quiet, strategic, careful. The recruits who had once doubted Emma now found themselves rallying behind her leadership. The lines between training and real conflict blurred as the conspiracy within Eagle Ridge came into sharper focus. As dawn broke over the base once more, Emma stood watchful, her resolve hardened. The battle for truth was just beginning, and with allies by her side, she was ready to confront the forces that sought to silence her forever. The clang of metal against metal echoed sharply through the training hall as Emma Carter squared off against Corporal Mitchell once again, this time in a controlled sparring match designed to test hand-to-hand combat skills. The fluorescent lights above cast stark shadows on the worn mats beneath them, the air thick with anticipation from the gathered recruits and instructors. Sergeant Daniels watched from the sidelines, arms crossed, his gaze sharp and unyielding. Mitchell's eyes burned with a mix of frustration and determination. Having underestimated Emma since day one, the earlier hip throw still stung his pride. Now he was determined to break through her defenses and reclaim some semblance of dominance. His stance was aggressive, fists clenched, ready to charge. Emma remained calm, centered, her breathing steady and measured. Every movement was deliberate, each posture reflecting years of disciplined training. She didn't just fight, she anticipated, reading Mitchell's intent with unsettling accuracy. The fight began with Mitchell lunging forward, his heavy blows aimed to overpower. Emma deflected with fluid blocks, redirecting his momentum, and using his own force to destabilize him. The room watched in silence, the tension palpable as each exchange unfolded like a calculated dance. With a swift pivot, Emma executed a textbook hip throw, sending Mitchell sprawling across the mat once again. This time, the impact tore the sleeve of her uniform, revealing the phoenix tattoo on her shoulder, a vivid emblem that drew gasps from the onlookers. Sergeant Daniels stepped forward, the weight of recognition evident in his eyes. "That symbol. Carter, you're not just any recruit," he said, voice low but charged with meaning. Emma met his gaze evenly. "I'm here to finish what was started," she said quietly, the words carrying the weight of history and resolve. The sparring session ended, but the atmosphere had shifted. The recruits who had once doubted Emma now regarded her with respect tinged with awe. The phoenix tattoo was more than ink, it was a mark of survival, a symbol tied to a covert unit shrouded in mystery. Later, in a secluded corner of the barracks, Emma convened with Corporal Lee and a handful of trusted recruits. The room was dimly lit, the air thick with urgency. "We've all seen how deep this goes," Emma began, voice steady but fierce. "The brass erased my unit, tried to bury us to protect themselves. But we can't let them win." Lee nodded, his expression grave. "Information leaks, covert operations, if we're not careful, we're sitting ducks. But if we play it right, we can expose the cover-up." The group leaned in as Emma outlined her plan, to gather evidence, leverage their positions within the base, and coordinate a strategic strike to reveal the truth. It was a dangerous game, one that could cost them everything. Among the recruits, a newfound solidarity blossomed. Doubts were replaced with determination, skepticism gave way to belief. Emma's leadership was no longer questioned, it was embraced. The following days saw the recruits balancing grueling training with covert operations. Emma moved seamlessly between roles, her tactical mind always several steps ahead. She coordinated information gathering during downtime, enlisted allies discreetly, and maintained the facade of a dedicated recruit while preparing for the inevitable confrontation. Corporal Lee proved invaluable, using his access to databases and communications to uncover hidden files and track suspicious activities. Together they pieced together a mosaic of deceit, documents altered, missions erased, lives sacrificed for political expediency. Meanwhile, tensions simmered beneath the surface of Eagle Ridge. Some officers cast wary glances at Emma, their suspicion growing but lacking proof. Rumors of rebellion and insubordination whispered through the ranks, but no one dared confront the recruit who had become a symbol of resilience. One evening, as the base settled into uneasy quiet, Emma gathered her allies in a hidden meeting room. Maps, files, and encrypted communications were spread across a table, illuminated by the glow of a single overhead lamp. "We strike during the next training exercise," Emma said, eyes sharp. "We'll expose the cover-up in front of everyone, recruits, staff, command. No more secrets." The plan was meticulous: infiltrate the administration building, access the classified archives, and broadcast the evidence through the base's communication systems. It was audacious and risky, but necessary. As the operation night approached, Emma felt the weight of responsibility settling heavily on her shoulders. The recruits who had once jeered now looked to her for guidance and strength. She was no longer just a survivor, she was a leader, a catalyst for change. The day of the exercise dawned cold and gray, the tension palpable as recruits prepared for what was expected to be a routine tactical drill. Emma moved with quiet purpose, her mind focused on the mission ahead. Every step was measured, every interaction a calculated move in the unfolding game. As the squads assembled, Sergeant Daniels gave the briefing, unaware of the storm about to break within his own base. Emma's heart pounded beneath her uniform, but her face remained composed, betraying none of the turmoil beneath. When the signal came, Emma led her small team toward the administration building, slipping past distracted guards and navigating corridors with practiced ease. The hum of the base's systems was a constant backdrop as they reached the secured archives. Corporal Lee worked swiftly, bypassing security protocols and unlocking encrypted files. The evidence spilled onto the screens: photos, documents, mission logs, all painting a damning picture of betrayal and cover-up. Emma activated the base's communication system, broadcasting the files to every terminal, every screen, every radio within Eagle Ridge. The revelation was instantaneous, a shockwave rippling through the ranks. Voices rose in confusion and outrage as the truth flooded in. Officers scrambled, recruits exchanged incredulous looks, and Sergeant Daniels's face hardened with a mix of disbelief and reluctant acceptance. The battle for truth had begun. Emma stood at the center, her resolve unshaken, ready to lead her comrades through the storm that was coming. The fallout from the broadcast rippled through Eagle Ridge like a shockwave, unsettling the rigid order that had long governed the base. Alarms blared faintly in the distance, but the real upheaval was in the faces of the recruits and officers alike, faces etched with disbelief, anger, and for some, a dawning sense of vindication. The walls of the administration building, once symbols of unchallenged authority, now seemed to close in around the conspirators who had sought to bury the truth. Sergeant Daniels stood rigid, his jaw clenched as he faced a crowd of recruits whose eyes reflected a mix of confusion and fierce resolve. Emma Carter, standing at the forefront, felt the weight of the moment press down on her yet refused to yield. This was no longer just about survival, it was about justice, and she was ready to fight for it. Among the gathered crowd, former teammates, long thought lost to the shadows of classified missions, emerged from the ranks. Faces weathered by hardship but eyes alight with the fire of shared purpose. Their presence was a silent testament to the truth Emma had risked everything to reveal. Murmurs swelled into voices as the recruits and veterans found solidarity in shared grief and determination. "Phoenix Squadron lives," whispered a voice from the back, breaking the tense silence. Sergeant Daniels's gaze flickered between Emma and the returning veterans, a conflict raging beneath his composed exterior. The betrayal he had once ignored now confronted him with stark reality. He cleared his throat, addressing the crowd with a voice that carried the weight of reluctant acknowledgement. "The truth cannot be hidden any longer," he said gravely. "What happened to Phoenix Squadron was a grave injustice. Those responsible will be held accountable. But the battle for justice was far from over." As the truth surfaced, so did the resistance. Faceless operatives loyal to the corrupted command structure moved swiftly to contain the damage. Orders crackled over encrypted channels, security teams mobilized to isolate the base. Locked doors and sealed perimeters transformed Eagle Ridge from a training facility into a battleground. Emma's instincts sharpened. "They're trying to silence us," she warned her allies, voice low but urgent. "We need to act, now." The recruits rallied, shedding their initial shock to embrace a newfound unity. Emma coordinated defensive positions, directing squads to cover entry points and secure vulnerable areas. Corporal Lee, ever resourceful, hacked into the base's surveillance systems, feeding real-time intel to Emma's command. The tension exploded into chaos as armed operatives breached corridors, their mission clear, to neutralize the threat Emma and her allies posed. The recruits met them head-on, their training forged into fierce resistance. The clang of combat echoed through hallways, shouts of command intermingled with the sharp reports of gunfire. Emma moved with lethal precision, leading her team through the labyrinth of the administration building. Her tactical training, once merely a tool for survival, now became the instrument of their defiance. Every corner held danger, every shadow a potential ambush. But the recruits, inspired by her leadership, fought with an unyielding spirit. In the fray, Jake Morrison and Alex Turner, two maintenance workers who had quietly supported Emma, joined the fight, their knowledge of the base's infrastructure proving invaluable. They guided the recruits through hidden passages and security blind spots, turning the building's layout to their advantage. The confrontation escalated, a deadly chess match of strategy and firepower. Emma's voice cut through the chaos, issuing commands that kept her team coordinated amidst the storm. "Hold the stairwell. Lee, flank left. Cover the rear." Despite the overwhelming odds, the recruits' determination held firm. The operatives, though well-trained and heavily armed, faltered against the unexpected resistance. The tide of battle shifted, inch by hard-fought inch. Amidst the turmoil, Emma locked eyes with Sergeant Daniels. In that moment, unspoken understanding passed between them, a recognition of past failures and a shared desire to rectify them. Daniels called out, rallying loyalists to stand down, his voice breaking through the din. Enough. This ends now. We bring this fight to a close together. The ceasefire was tenuous but held. The operatives withdrew, their mission compromised. As the dust settled, the recruits gathered, bruised but unbroken. The battle for truth had been won, but the war for justice was just beginning. Emma stood amid her comrades, the phoenix tattoo on her shoulder now a blazing symbol of resilience and hope. The truth had shattered the silence, and with it, the foundations of a corrupt system. As dawn broke over Eagle Ridge, the recruits, once divided by doubt and suspicion, now united under Emma's leadership, faced the uncertain road ahead. The scars of betrayal ran deep, but so did their resolve. In the quiet aftermath, Emma exchanged a glance with Lee and the returning veterans. Their shared silence spoke volumes, a pact forged in fire and blood, a commitment to honor those lost and to rebuild what had been broken. The base, scarred but standing, became a crucible for change. And Emma Carter, survivor and leader, stood ready to guide her comrades through the trials yet to come. The morning sun cast a pale light over Eagle Ridge, filtering through the windows of the once rigid and unyielding military base now tinged with the promise of transformation. The air was thick with a mixture of relief, anticipation, and the quiet hum of change. The events of the past days had shaken the foundation, but from that upheaval, a new beginning was emerging. Emma Carter stood at the front of the assembly hall, her posture firm, her gaze steady as she addressed a crowd of recruits and officers. The phoenix tattoo on her shoulder was no longer a secret, but a symbol embraced by many, a testament to survival, resilience, and the fight for truth. Her voice carried with a calm authority that commanded attention. Eagle Ridge has been through trials that tested our limits, both physical and moral, she began, eyes sweeping the room. But we are more than the mistakes of the past. We have the power to rebuild, to create a culture that values transparency, respect, and the true spirit of service. The room was silent but responsive. Sergeant Daniels stood nearby, his expression one of quiet respect, a man who had witnessed the storm, and now embraced the calm it left behind. The recruits, once skeptical, now looked to Emma as a leader, not just of drills and combat but of change. In the weeks that followed, the base underwent a profound transformation. New policies were introduced, emphasizing accountability and open communication. Training programs were revamped to include lessons on ethics, teamwork, and the importance of diversity in strength. Emma was appointed as a lead instructor, tasked with mentoring the next generation of soldiers, a role she accepted with a solemn determination. Her teaching style was rigorous but fair, blending the harsh realities of combat with the empathy born from her own experiences. She pushed recruits to their limits but also encouraged them to question, to think critically, and to support one another. The old hierarchies gave way to a more inclusive environment, where every voice mattered. Amid the evolving landscape, confidential messages arrived, encrypted and brief, hinting at others who had survived alongside Emma, scattered but alive. The possibility of reconnecting with these survivors added a new layer of purpose to her mission. It was a thread of hope woven into the fabric of her resolve. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Emma stood alone on the training grounds, the cool breeze carrying the distant sounds of drills and camaraderie. Her thoughts drifted to those lost, to the battles fought in shadows, and to the uncertain road ahead. A message buzzed softly on her secure device, a line of text that read simply, "We're out here. Ready when you are." A faint smile touched her lips. The fight was far from over, but Emma was no longer alone. With her past unveiled and her future uncertain, she felt the weight of responsibility balanced by the strength of newfound allies. Turning back toward the base, she walked with a steady stride, embodying the spirit of the phoenix rising from ashes, ready to lead, to inspire, and to light the way for those still lost in darkness.